The grid went down at 11:03 p.m., and by 11:47 I was driving through a blackout city looking for the one person stupid enough to still be outside. I want to be clear, finding him was not part of my job. My job on a night when the Texas power grid failed across 6 counties in the middle of an ice storm that nobody had properly prepared for, again, was to get critical backup generators running. Hospitals, dialysis centers, a shelter on East 6th that had 212 people in it who had nowhere else to go. I had a truck full of equipment, a dispatch list of 14 addresses, and approximately no margin for anything that wasn't on that list. And then my radio crackled, and a shelter coordinator named Pat said, almost as an aside, "Hey, whoever's closest to Congress Avenue, there's a guy playing guitar out there, on the bridge, in the dark. We've tried to wave him in twice. He won't come." It was 3 blocks from Congress Avenue. "What do you mean, he won't come?" I said. "He says he's fine," Pat said. "He doesn't sound fine. Temperatures dropping to 18 by midnight, 18 degrees, no power, Congress Avenue bridge in an ice storm. I've got a generator run at the shelter at midnight," I said. "Generator run takes 20 minutes, Pat said. Bridge is 3 blocks. I didn't say anything. "His name is Cillian Voss," Pat said. "He plays there every Friday. We know him. Don't go anywhere because what I found on that bridge in the dark is something I've tried to describe 100 times and never gotten right. I'm going to try again. Congress Avenue bridge at midnight in a blackout is not the same bridge, you know, from daylight. No streetlights. No traffic. The roads were glazed with black ice, and the city had gone still the way cities go still when they're scared. No ambient glow from the buildings because there were no buildings with power. Just the bridge over Lady Bird Lake, and the ice coming down in the specific way freezing rain comes down. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just relentless. And in the middle of it, sitting on the concrete railing, with his back to the city and his face to the lake, a man playing guitar, not quietly, not tentatively, fully, the kind of playing that means you've made a decision about what you're doing, and you're doing it. I pulled the truck to the shoulder and got out. The cold hit me like a wall. 18 degrees with wind chill, and he was in a canvas jacket that was not rated for 18 degrees. And he was playing like the temperature was a detail he'd already processed and set aside. I walked to him. He didn't stop playing. "Cillian Voss," I said. He looked up. Late 30s, dark eyes, the specific calm of someone who has been outside long enough to stop fighting it. Ice on his jacket collar. Ice on the tuning pegs of the guitar. "That's me," he said, and kept playing. "I need you to come off the bridge," I said. "I'm fine," he said. "It's 18 degrees, I said. "I know what temperature it is," he said. "I've been out here since 9, 3 hours. He'd been out here 3 hours. "Why?" I said. Not an accusation. I genuinely wanted to know. He looked at me properly for the first time. My name patch was visible on my jacket. Lachlan Gray, Urquhart Emergency Operations. "You're the power guy," he said. "I'm one of them," I said. "And I have a generator run in 20 minutes, so I need you to tell me quickly, why are you sitting on a bridge in an ice storm in the dark?" He played one more chord. "Let it ring." "Because," he said, "when the lights went out, I realized I was the only thing still making sound, and it felt important to keep making it. I stood there in the freezing rain on Congress Avenue Bridge, and I had no professional response to that. "Get in the truck," I said. "You can explain it on the way." He looked at me for a long moment. "Where are you going?" He said. "East 6th Shelter. Generator run. Can I come?" "Are you going to keep arguing with me about the bridge?" "No," he said. "I've made my point." He put the guitar in its case carefully, deliberately, ice-crusted hands moving with precision despite the cold, and followed me to the truck. Wait, I need to tell you what he said in the truck, because it changed how I heard everything that came after. The truck was warm. He held his hands in front of the heating vents without saying anything for about 90 seconds, and I drove through the blackout city. Dark storefronts, dark traffic lights, the occasional flashlight in a window, and waited. "I play Congress Avenue every Friday night," he said finally. "Have for 4 years. Rain, Heat doesn't matter. People go home after the bars close, and I play the bridge for the lake. Nobody's listening. That's the point. Nobody's listening is the point, I said. The city listens, he said. Not the people. The city. When it's quiet enough, you can hear what Austin actually sounds like under all the noise. I'm trying to be part of that. I processed this while navigating black ice on East 6th, and tonight, I said, tonight, the city went quiet in a different way, he said. Not the end of night quiet. Emergency quiet. And I thought, he stopped. I thought if I stopped playing, that the quiet would win. I pulled into the shelter parking lot, left the engine running for a moment. That's not an irrational thought, I said. He looked at me. Most people think it is. Most people haven't driven through a grid failure at midnight, I said. The silence has a specific weight. I know what you mean. He was quiet. The heater ran. Outside, the freezing rain ticked against the windshield. Lachlan Gray, he said, reading my name, Patch. Yeah, you're the first person who said that to me in 4 years of Friday nights, he said. That they know what I mean. I didn't know what to do with that. So I did the professional thing. I got out of the truck and went to run the generator. He came with me. I didn't ask him to. I didn't tell him not to. He just got out of the truck with his guitar case and followed me around to the back of the shelter, where the backup generator was a 150 kilowatt Caterpillar unit that had last been serviced 8 months ago and was showing exactly the kind of fault codes that happen when a generator sits idle too long and then gets called on in an emergency. Is it supposed to make that sound? He said. No, I said. What's wrong with it? Fuel injector fault, I said. Probably a clogged line. The fuel's been sitting. Can you fix it? Yes, I said. Give me 20 minutes. He set his guitar case down against the wall of the shelter, sat on it, and watched me work. I have run emergency generator repairs in conditions ranging from inconvenient to genuinely dangerous. I work fast and I work clean, and I don't need an audience. But there was something about having him there sitting on his case in the cold, watching with actual attention, not the polite attention of someone waiting for you to finish, but the real kind. The kind that means they're trying to understand what you're doing. That made me narrate. I don't narrate. I fix things. I have never once explained what I was doing to a bystander while I was doing it. Fuel injector sits idle. It gums up, I heard myself say. Especially in cold. The fuel thickens, the line restricts, the injector can't pulse correctly. The generator tries to start, reads a fault, shuts down, so it protects itself, he said. Tries to, I said. Sometimes protection is the problem. He was quiet for a moment. How do you fix it? Clear the line, clean the injector, give it a reason to trust the fuel again up from the access panel, and then you ask it nicely. He almost smiled. Almost. You ask the generator nicely. I have a specific knock, I said. On the housing. Sounds ridiculous. Works every time. What does the knock do? Vibrates the float in the carb, I said. Breaks up any remaining sediment. But also, I paused. I think it's the asking. I think machines know when you believe in them. He looked at me for a long moment. You've been doing this a long time, he said. 11 years. I said. And you still believe the knock works? I still know the knock works, I said. There's a difference. I knocked on the housing 3 times. Specific interval, specific pressure. Hit the start sequence. The generator caught. Ran rough for seconds. Then, smoothed out into a steady, even thrum. The shelter lights came on. Through the shelter windows, I could see the reaction inside. The collective exhale of 212 people in the warm light. Someone cheered. Someone was crying. A kid pressed their face to the window. I stood there with my hands still inside the access panel and felt what I always feel when a generator comes back online. That specific, uncomplicated satisfaction of a system restored. A thing that was broke running again. That's what you do, Cillian said quietly. Every time, I said, and you don't get tired of it. I looked at the shelter windows. The light inside, the people inside, the kid still pressed to the glass. No, I said. I don't. This is the part where I should have driven him somewhere warm and gone to my next address. I had 11 more generators on my list. I was already 40 minutes behind. I did not drive him somewhere warm and go to my next address. I have 10 more runs, I said. You can come, or I can drop you at the shelter. He picked up his guitar case. He came. The next 4 hours were the strangest of my professional life. And I have had a professional life that includes a generator, fire in a pediatric ICU, and a fuel line rupture at a water treatment plant at a This was stranger than both of those. We drove through the blackout city together, him in the passenger seat with the guitar case upright between his knees, me navigating iced roads to address after address. And between stops he talked and I listened. And somewhere around the third generator I stopped thinking of him as the person I'd pulled off a bridge and started thinking of him as the person I was telling things to, which was new. I don't tell things to people, I run generators. I go home. At the dialysis center on Lamar, while I was bleeding air out of a fuel line in a parking garage, he told me about the first time he played Congress Avenue Bridge. 23 years old, just moved to Austin from El Paso, knew nobody, had $40 and a guitar he'd carried in a hard case on a Greyhound bus for 12 hours. I played for 3 hours, he said. Nobody stopped. One person threw $1, didn't look at me. And at the end, I thought this is the right city. Because nobody stopped? I said. Because the city let me be in it, he said. Without asking what I was for, I bled the last air out of the line. The fuel ran clean. Most places ask what you're for, I said. Most places, he said. Austin doesn't, I said. Austin doesn't, he confirmed. He looked at me across the generator housing. What are you for? Nobody had ever asked me that. Not like that. Not as a real question. This, I said. Keeping things running when they fail. But what are you for? He said again. Gently. The distinction clear. I stood up from the generator. My hands were numb despite the gloves. The parking garage smelled like diesel and cold concrete. And somewhere above us, the city was dark and quiet and scared. I don't know, I said. I've been doing this so long I forgot to ask. He nodded. Not with pity, with recognition. Like he knew that specific forgetting. That's why I play the bridge, he said. To remember. Don't skip this. The next part is the one I've been building toward since the moment I saw him on the railing. At 3:40 a.m. we reached the last address on my list. A residential care facility in South Austin. A small building with 12 residents and a backup generator that was, by some grace, already running. Someone had serviced it recently. I did a check, logged it, updated dispatch. Done. I sat in the truck and did not start the engine. He sat beside me and did not ask why we weren't moving. Outside the truck, the ice storm had finally moved east. The temperature was still brutal, but the freezing rain had stopped, and in the specific quiet of a city without power, you could hear nothing. The complete absence of the hum that cities make when they're running. No HVAC, no traffic signal transformers. No, the 1,000 small electrical sounds that constitute the background of urban life. Just cold and dark, and the two of us in a warm truck with the engine off. Play something, I said. He looked at me, and here I said, I want to hear what it sounds like. He unlatched the case, got the guitar out carefully, the way he'd gotten it out on the bridge. The practiced care of someone for whom the instrument is not a prop. He adjusted in the seat, which is not easy with a full acoustic guitar in a truck cab. But he made it work. He played. Not the bridge music. Something else. Quieter. More interior. The kind of playing that doesn't announce itself. Just begins. And then you realize it's been going for a while, and you've stopped thinking about anything else. I sat in the driver's seat of my truck, in a dark street in South Austin, and I listened. Really listened. The way I listen to a generator when it's running rough. For what's underneath. For what the sound is telling you about the system producing it. What it told me was, this person has been alone with this for a long time. Not lonely. Alone, the chosen kind. The kind you build a practice around. 4 years of Friday nights on a bridge that nobody watches. But underneath the alone, something that had been waiting without knowing what it was waiting for. I know that feeling. I have run generators alone at AM for 11 years, and I know that feeling precisely. He finished. The last cord decayed in the truck cab, absorbed by the seats and the windows and the cold outside. Cillian, I said. Yeah. What was that? I don't know yet, he said. I've been carrying it. I play it when something shifts. Something shifted tonight, I said. Yeah, he said. Something shifted tonight. We sat in the dark truck on the dark street, and I thought about generators, about systems that sit idle too long and gum up, that need someone to clear the line, and apply the right pressure, and ask them to run, and then run cleanly once they remember how. He was looking at me, not performing, looking, just looking, the way he looked at everything, with full attention and nothing held back. Lachlan, he said. Yeah. Been on that bridge every Friday for 4 years, he said. You're the first person who came to find me because the quiet had weight. I came because Pat from the shelter called, I said. You came because you knew what I meant, he said. Pat could have sent anyone. He was right. Pat could have sent anyone. I was 3 blocks away, but there were other trucks, other technicians. I had gone because of the way Pat said he doesn't sound fine, and something in me had calculated that specific kind of not fine and gone anyway. Yeah, I said. I knew what you meant. He was close in the truck cab, guitar between us, but close. The way small spaces make people close, and neither of us was creating distance. His face in the ambient dark was very clear, the specific clarity of someone who is not performing or managing or being careful. What happens to the generators now? He said. When the grid comes back, they run until the switch, I said. Then they idle down, then they sit, and then next time someone comes to clear the line, I said. They don't run on their own, no, he said. Things don't. We looked at each other in the dark truck, and I understood that we were not talking about generators, and had not been for some time. The bridge, I said. Next Friday, I'll be there, he said. I'm always there, I know, I said. I'll find you. He held my eyes for a long moment. Outside the truck, somewhere in the distance, a power line crew was working. You could hear the diesel of their equipment, faint, moving through the dark city. The grid coming back, sector by sector. The hum of Austin returning. Lachlan, he said. Yeah. The guitar, he said. What you heard just now. What did it tell you? I thought about what I'd heard. The system underneath the sound, what the sound was telling me about the person making it, that you've been running on your own for a long time, I said, and that you're good at it, and that it's not the same as running with someone. He was very still. No, he said quietly, it's not. The first streetlight on the block came on, one light, grid power returning, the system waking up sector by sector, then another, the amber glow of Austin coming back, block by block. The city remembering how to be itself. Cillian looked at the light. There it is, he said. There it is, I said. He looked back at me, and in the first street light of a city coming back online, his face was completely visible, open, present, not performing anything. Just there. Next Friday, he said. Next Friday, I said. He put the guitar back in the case, latched it, opened the truck door and got out into the cold, and then turned back, door still open. Austin's returning light behind him. Lachlan, he said. Yeah, thank you for coming to find me. Thank you for still playing, I said. He closed the door. I watched him walk toward the shelter 2 blocks down, guitar case over his shoulder. The streetlights coming on around him one by one, the city warming up underneath him as he walked. I sat in the truck until he was out of sight. Then I started the engine, called dispatch, and logged the last generator on my list. All 14, running. The following Friday, the grid held. I was on Congress Avenue Bridge at 11 p.m. He was already there. He looked up when I came across the bridge. Didn't stop playing. I sat down on the railing beside him, not across from him, beside him, and listened to Austin the way he'd been teaching it to me all week in a single night. He played for 2 hours. I stayed for all of it. At a.m. he stopped, and the city was quiet, and he said, "You came back." I said I would, I said. People say things, he said. I know, I said. I'm not people. He looked at me for a long moment in the bridge light, then he played one more chord. The one from the truck. The unfinished one. The one that had been waiting, and this time it had somewhere to go. This time it resolved.